Welcome to ERTT Radio. I'm Mike, your host. Thanks for joining us. Well, today we have a special treat. We have a special guest here on the line with us. He actually works in law enforcement. Let's welcome Floyd to ERTT Radio.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, it's good to have you on the program. We had several questions worked out for you. Some I've gotten from listeners. First question is, tell us a little bit about your job, what you are required to do.
Okay, I work in the detention division of sheriff's office. We just moved from the sheriff's office to the county commissioners. It's just really a political thing. Job stayed the same, but yep, one of those things that, with the county governments, the sheriff doesn't have to run it. So he said, I'm done, because the county would not give him the money to run it correctly. But job duties include, supervising, people that have been arrested, transporting them from one spot to another, whether it's to court or to the hospital, etc. Just primarily care, custody, and control.
So pretty much you deal with all the criminals that those out on patrol bring in.
Yes, and we deal with them 12 and a half hours at a stretch, where those patrol guys, most of the time, they spend less than a half hour. So, you definitely have to get up close and personal with them.
Yeah, I know that's not something I would definitely want to deal with, and I'm pretty sure most of my listeners would agree with that.
Well, like everything else, it's got its pluses and minuses. This is not a state prison, so, everybody, you just assume that they're innocent, and, you go from there. You see some people that they come in and every other month they're back. Some people don't even last an hour out there before they come back in through the doors. And some people are just one time. They make just one little mistake, and they come in for a visit, and then the judge has to deal with them, and whatever he decides their punishment should be, or whether they dismiss the charges.
So you deal a lot with what some of us would view as the criminal element on a normal basis. One question we had is the Second Amendment rights that we're all guaranteed by the Constitution. As a law enforcement officer, now a corrections officer, working for the county, what is your take on the Second Amendment as far as for private citizens?
Well, by and large, most in law enforcement, they support the Second Amendment. They support the concealed carry. Because it does reduce crime. There's no doubt about it. Because of background checks and everything, it weeds out, 99.9% of the people that, are going to be, the criminal element there. The other thing is, the criminal element, they don't care. I mean, they're already breaking the law, so they're not going to follow some gun law, whether it's concealed carry or not. So most rank and file law enforcement officers, they're for the Second Amendment. They realize what it does, which is reduce crime and protects us from big government.
So let's say, for like myself, I'm at home and somebody's trying to break in, and I call 911 and call for, the police to show up and arrest the guy. About how long should I normally wait for a police officer to show up at the door?
Well, that's the thing. It just depends on where you're at. If you're way out in the country, the city response is quite a bit quicker. But the difference being, even with a city response, let's say it takes them 5 minutes, which from what I've seen personally, it's going to take them about 5 minutes to get there. The criminal can either hurt you, kill you, run off with all your stuff in that amount of time. So, and the police are not responsible for your personal protection. So it's up to the common citizen to be able to protect themselves. And, of course, it varies by state law what you can and can't do. In the state I live on, or live in. If you're feeling threatened, you can kill the person in the yard. They don't even have to break into the house if you feel that threatened. And it happened about 8 or 9 years back. This lady was on her front porch, and she was afraid for her life. And the guy come on the yard, and she had to pull the trigger. And it's one of those things that you hate to have to do, but it's better than losing your life for some criminal who does not care about anything.
And the law you're referring to is what most of us would refer to as the castle doctrine.
Yes, and really, that's just a basic the human right is to be able to protect yourself and your property from unwanted, seizure, whether it's by the government or by a criminal.
Now, I know you have a personal story regarding your use in the castle doctrine. Would you mind telling that to our audience?
Yes, it's not really a criminal story as such, even though the persons involved did receive fines. I was woken up one morning by my daughter saying there was an animal in my backyard, had trampled the fence and was attacking one of our pets. And I responded with my bolt action 22 because no, I really didn't want to take the life of another animal, somebody else's pet. But that's exactly what happened. The first dog, I shot him twice, and he dropped the pet, ran off. Well, the owner was right there in the front yard, and he was, very upset. And he had a pit bull mix, a rather large dog, on a leash. Well, he was upset, and I told him, call the sheriff's office. I'm going to call the sheriff's office because the agency I work for is in another county. So I called. He proceeded to walk home, and after he got home, which was over 100 yards down the street, he let the pit bull go, and of course the pit bull ran right back into my yard. And I was on the phone with dispatch, and I hung up on him, and I told them there's another dog attacking my pet again. So, here's this dog with my pet in its mouth. I have my 22 rifle again in my hand. My daughter and my wife are outside. As the dog is trying to escape to eat this pet, my wife hits it with a stick. And of course, the pit bull is not going to let it go. And the owner is hollering there in my backyard not to shoot his dog. And, I had no choice. 2 shots later, I dropped him dead with a shot to the head while all this is going on at about a range of 5 yards or less. And again, he was noticeably upset, and he kind of walked off back to his house, and I got back on the phone with dispatch, and I informed them that I had put up the 22 rifle and got out my AR-15 because now I don't trust what this guy's going to do. I mean, he has 2 dogs, and they have both come into my yard and attacked my pet. And I'm on phone with dispatch. It took them at least 5 more minutes to get there. And dispatch continued to ask me, where is this person at? And I'm in my backyard. I never even left the backyard. But while I'm on the phone, this guy goes home, gets his black lab again that I shot the first time, and tries to come back in the backyard. And I had to tell him, sir, you need to get back on the road. And he said that he wanted to check on his dog, and I had to inform him, your dog is dead, and you better get back on the road. And he kept coming until he seen the AR-15. Then he turned around and walked back to the road. And I informed dispatch of what I had, and I said, when the patrol deputies, when they show up, let me know and I'll put the rifle up. And they let me know, and I put it up, and they 2 deputies showed up, and of course this person instantly runs over them to tell his side of the story, which in my line of work you kind of get to know that's what they're going to do. And one of the patrol guys come over. He was a SWAT officer. He came back, and we talked. He's seen the evidence, and he said there's not going to be any problem because I was within my rights to defend my pets. And he also complimented me on the good shot. And so, the animal control showed up, and again, this guy runs over there to him, and he got on the phone, of course, and called two friends over. So now there's three people bugging both the patrol officers and the animal control. And, after the animal control talked to them, he came and talked to me and took pictures of both the, dead animal, the dead pit bull, and, my pet, and evidence of the attack. And, we discussed it, and he plainly told me that, he was going to fine both the other people because it didn't have a tag, didn't have a leash, and didn't have shots. So far it's come out as a tragic that I had to take the life of a dog, but you have the right to protect yourself and your property.
Yeah, and from another point of view, if that would have been, the dog, pit bulls aren't known for being nice animals. If they had come after your daughter or your wife, that would have been a more tragic story. You said you were complimented on your shooting. Now, what, as a law enforcement officer, are you required to qualify? What is your requirements as a law enforcement officer?
Well, here's the thing. Most civilians out there, they expect the law enforcement officer to be an expert with weapons, and that is not the case. Most law enforcement officers I see, they qualify once a year. Now, that's the only time they pull the trigger on any weapon is once a year. And then, of course, they wonder why they have a problem with qualifying. And, this is why some of these shootings you see, the police are shooting, 20, 30, 40 times and hitting the suspect, none or maybe once or twice. It's one of those things that, I believe that, you need to practice. So, I'm doing it on my dime, my ammo, and everything else to be able to practice. And that's an important thing to be able to do it, because when you're in a stressful situation, your fine motor skills, they start going away. It's once a year qualifying, you're firing maybe 100 rounds, and that's it. That's not near enough. Now, that's not saying some of the specialty units like SWAT or hostage rescue, they fire a ton more. But the, line officer, most of them, no. They shoot maybe 100, 150 rounds a year to qualify. Unless their department, has the money, which no government agency has a lot of money right now, besides maybe Homeland Security. But that brings me to a couple other points for the listeners out there. Is I do not believe in a duty weapon or something you're going to trust your life with to have a safety, and that is a manual safety, not a automatic safety, if you want to call that, like a Glock, or a double action only like a revolver. Okay, because in this incident with this pet, between the first two shots and the next two shots, somehow my rifle got its safety put on. So when I go to fire at that pit bull, the safety is on. Well, what do you do? Do you have the training? Or are you able to think well enough to be able to pull that off? And I had to rack the bolt again. I thought I hadn't done that. And when I pulled the trigger the second time and it didn't go off, I immediately knew the safety was on. Like I said, I try to spend a lot of time that I can out at the range. So I was still within a half second able to take that safety off. Now, if that would have been a suspect there and I had my duty weapon out, that could have been a very, very bad situation. So the two things you need to realize is, A, don't have a safety on your weapon. There's plenty of them out there, Springfield, Glock, all your double action revolvers, they don't have a safety. Okay? Definitely don't want that unless you're willing to train, and I mean train. We're talking 8-10 hours a month. And most people are not going to be willing to spend the time or the ammo to do that.
Yeah, I know. My favorite weapon to carry is actually a Walther P99, and it doesn't have a safety per se. I used to also carry my SIG 229, and that also does not have a safety. So I take it your duty weapon is a Glock then?
Yes, yes. I carry a Glock 19 for work. I would love to carry my 10 millimeter, but again, those departments don't have the money for ammo. Um, so yeah, I carry a 9 millimeter. The county, my agency just come out where they're not even going to supply ammo to qualify. I'm going to have to supply that. So I'm, supplying both my qualifying ammo and my duty ammo for work. It's just one of those things that a lot of agencies are having to tighten their belt. Um, you know, that's one of those things you have to do. It comes with the territory.
So your major emphasis for the listeners, those who own firearms, is to one, make sure you know your weapon, two, make sure you practice with the weapon. And I know your dad had an issue with a pistol he shot. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, that's the other thing. People go out and they buy a firearm and they never shoot it, and they think, well, it's a quality piece, whether it's a Colt, a Glock, a Springfield, Walther, whatever. And don't get me wrong, some of those are real high quality pieces. But this one involved a Glock. Now, Glocks are known for firing every time. Okay, no matter what. Throw it out in the woods, come pick it up a year later, it will fire. Okay? Well, this Glock is a new one. It's a 42. It's a little 380. Really nice pistol. It's like everything else with Glock. It's going to go bang. Well, the ammo that was being used was very high quality. It was $1.25 a round, so it's not some cheap stuff. And the Glock absolutely refused to shoot it. It was kind of amazing. I'd never seen that. And that's the thing. Take your weapon out, practice. But before you carry some exotic ammo or even normal ammo, go out and try it out. Make sure the gun is going to like it, because guns get kind of funny sometimes. Some will like one brand, some won't. So yeah, always test it before you count your life on it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I have a Keltec PMR 30, and the ammo I bought was, American made ammo, but it wasn't powerful enough to rack the slide back when you fired it. So about every 2 rounds, the slide wouldn't pull all the way back. So you would have to continue racking the slide in order to keep feeding the rounds. So that is an excellent point for listeners to remember, is that when you take your gun out and you're prepared to use it, you need to know for a fact that it's going to work every time with whatever ammo you have in it, that you've taken it out and you've practiced with it and you know it'll fire every time and you can hit the target every time with it.
Well, that's the thing. You don't get a second chance. If it's life or death and you're facing somebody that has a weapon pointed at you, if you're a concealed carry holder, if you're at the store and he's pointing that weapon on you, he has just made that decision to take your life, okay? Whether he's meaning to or not, when he points that weapon, there is no more doubt that he is ready and willing to do it. So you need to be confident. That's the other thing. With practice comes confidence. And then the other thing is, it's going to work. Because you don't want to be going, is this thing going to work? Is the safety off? You have all these things you have a split second to do, because he's ready to take your life or the life of your family. That's the other thing. Protect not only yourself, but protect your family. Well, here's a Second Amendment kind of thing. Know your laws in your state, and if there's any case files, court cases, know that, because the rank and file patrol officer there's no way he knows all the laws. Okay, there's just too many of them out there, and that's the thing with government. They've bloated all these laws up, but knowledge is power. I mean, if you know in your state you can open carry, definitely, know your laws. So that way, when that patrol guy comes, because the citizen has complained that they're scared that you're walking down Main Street with your weapon on your hip, you can say, hey, this is what state law is, and be prepared to cite whatever state law it is. If it's statute this, and this, you know, so that way there's two things that comes of that. One is, yeah, you're defending your right without having to do anything, and the other thing is the police, like I said, they don't know all the laws, and the agency policy is not going to change unless somebody makes a big deal about it. It happened here. The county I work in, they were harassing some people that were open carrying, and my state is not allowed. But there's two exceptions. One is if you're camping, two is if you're fishing or coming to and from fishing. Well, it happened where the person stated the statute or the law that, hey, this is okay. Well, then it comes out in a beautiful email to all all law enforcement that, hey, if you suspect or even think this guy might be fishing or coming to and from fishing, you don't need to be harassing him about carrying that weapon on his hip. And that's how change is done.
So you pretty much need to know your rights in order to exercise them. And that is something that I have definitely expressed on the radio program to the listeners, is to know what you can and can't do and exercise it. If you don't know the freedoms you have, you're soon going to lose them.
Oh yes, yes. You have to know, what your right is, because yeah, if you don't know them and don't exercise them, yeah, they're going to take them away by intimidation. Now, I'm not saying, be all mean about it. Okay, you definitely need to be respectful to whatever's going on if you're walking down Main Street and this patrol guy is talking to you. Okay. Yeah, you need to be respectful, but you also need to say, hey, these are my rights in a firm, calm manner, and if he violates your rights, well, guess what? The patrolman, he's not going to get in trouble. The agency is the one that gets in trouble because the officer is operating under the color of law. So as long as he's not violating the agency's policy, he's protected. So, I'm not saying, say, no, you can't do this or that. You'll calmly state, this is what the law is, and I want a supervisor. And then a lot of times on the way, yeah, that supervisor's looking it up to see what's going on.
So for some of the listeners that are in definitely not pro-gun areas, and I know in certain New England states that they have made laws to register firearms and then to soon thereafter to collect said firearms. Now, I know there is an issue in Connecticut with that going on right now. As law enforcement, how do you handle that type of situation? It doesn't have to be anything specific, but how would you guys in general have to handle that situation?
Well, you got two conflicting things there. You have your federal law, which happens to be the Second Amendment. Then you have whatever state law is being passed. Now, you have some that's just going to do what they're told. Then you're going to have others that say, no, I'm not going to. So, it's going to be dependent on the individual law enforcement officer. I know most of them would be like, no, that's not right. I'm not going to do it. But, you've got some people that are scared that, well, if I don't enforce this law, I'm going to lose my job, but again, what's your freedom worth? Me personally, no, my freedom is not, worth a job. If they were like, well, we're going to have to go house to house and confiscate weapons, it ain't going to happen.
So it basically comes down to each individual citizen on what they're going to do or not do. One last question for you. Uh, Gun-free stores, you have Starbucks particularly requested that you do not carry guns in their establishments. I know legally they have to have a sign saying no guns allowed. How do you, as law enforcement, view establishments of that nature? Not necessarily Starbucks, but establishments that say no guns allowed.
Well, it gets back to the store, whatever store it is. They think having a gun-free zone like a school is going to stop a criminal. Now, we of course have all seen on the news here in the last 20 years that obviously that does not work. It is kind of stupid. The criminal doesn't care. He's already breaking the law by carrying a weapon because most of them are felons. They're not allowed to even own a weapon or one piece of ammo. So now he's going and he's carrying concealed. Do you think he's going to be able to read the sign, number one? Or if he cares that the sign is there? He doesn't. He's just looking for whatever it is, whether it's drugs, money, just protection, so yeah, I think those signs are really stupid. And most law enforcement agree. It's just, thinking a criminal is going to obey the law. You look at all these school shootings out there. How many laws did he break, before they got to the school? 5, 10, 20, 40 laws they broke before they even got to the school. So, one more law or one more, well, no, you can't have guns here, isn't going to stop the criminal.
That is very true. That is something I have expressed on the program before. So I appreciate you spending time with us here on the program. Do you have any last comments for us before you go?
No, I appreciate you inviting me to talk here on the show.
All right. Well, that's all we have time here, folks. Thank you for joining us, and thank Floyd for joining us and representing law enforcement and giving us his comments. If you have any comments or questions about the radio program, you can shoot me an email at miked@erttradio.com. And as always, live free, die free.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad